My guest returning to the show is Ben Ward, CEO of Wayland Group, trading on the CSE under symbol WAYL. Ben, welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me, James.
Ben, every time I talk to you, the developments within Wayland are leapfrogging the last development, and so, you know, I got to say I'm just very impressed. And so right now, it was interesting. We were talking earlier, and we were talking about EU GMP certified facilities who are actually in a position to export to Europe, because Europe does not allow anything to be imported in the cannabis space that does not packaged and processed and grown according to EU GMP standards. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. They send an inspector from the home state of the country that you're importing to, and they inspect your facility in Canada or wherever else you are in the world, and then walk through every single step, your standard operating procedures, and they evaluate. So it's another higher level of standard than good production practices that we see as a standard in Canada.
Is it the highest standard in the world?
At present, it is the highest standard in the world.
Huh. Okay, so right now, the EU GMP certified exporters are limited to Tilray, Canopy Growth Corp, and Aurora, as well as Wayland.
Exactly.
Okay, so this is the thing that I look at Wayland, and this is why I'm on the bid daily right now, especially with prices where they are, is you know, there are no other EU GMP certified exporters of product or processors of product, and you've actually got a huge footprint in Europe in terms of the distribution as well.
Yeah, we have existing operations in Germany, and unlike many of our competitors, we're not just talking about it, we're actually doing it. So Wayland has an operational footprint in Germany on the ground, distribution exists, and we have operations and distribution in Switzerland as well.
In Switzerland as well. Okay, so at this time, how many patients are you shipping to?
In Canada, we had 11,000 registered patients, and in Germany, we're distributing to pharmacies. It's a different model. It's not a patient-based model.
Right.
You ship to pharmacies, and then the pharmacies distribute the product to patients with prescriptions.
Okay, now in terms of, I'm trying to get at here, the future on the medical side of Germany. Like right now, there's only 30,000 prescribed patients. So it hasn't adopted the momentum here where, you know, it's a major percentage of the population is a patient of cannabinoids. Yeah. What is the process by which that will happen? What's the timeline until, you know, a majority of German patients are able to access the full range of cannabis products for the full range of indications?
I think the timeline is about a year away. We've seen rapid uptake. Remember, legalization only occurred in January 2017. Then specialists were prescribing. Now the indication range is broad. So we see people being prescribed cannabis on a ramp. I don't think that it's an issue of prescriptions necessarily being written. It's more of a complete lack of supply because, as you mentioned, there's only 4 Canadian suppliers, and then you add Bedrocan and AV. No one else is able to ship, as we've seen in Canadian recreational. There's not enough product in this country to even supply our recreational demand, let alone medical demand. And there's this massive demand from Europe, especially Germany and other places, where patients are fully funded by health insurance for their cannabis product. That's an important differentiation.
So they have no problem having their product paid for?
Exactly.
So how do you amp up the supply of cannabis products into Germany and Switzerland in the shortest term?
Yeah, it's through distribution agreements like we signed with Canna Medical. Our agreement is the largest in the world, 9,000 kilograms over 3 years. And they've called us back. He called me as recently as 11 o'clock last night and said, send more. We need more product.
Send more weed.
Exactly.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so the balance sheet of Wayland is going to reflect this increasing ramp up into the distribution channels in Europe. In Canada?
We'll see transfer pricing for Canada. We'll see the revenue recognized in the German subsidiary and then transferred to Canada. It'll be a very healthy 2019.
Sure. Okay, so big milestones for Wayland going into 2019.
Big milestones are approval of our existing facility in Canada, coming on and licensing and then producing. So we expect at the end of March to have our first mass crop coming out of our new facility, then moving to perpetual grow. That's when we'll see revenue really uptick in the company. Other milestones, we expect to start producing cannabis in Germany medically under the tender process, and then moving into different markets like Colombia, where we announced our acquisition of a license there, and starting mass outdoor agriculture there. So these are, and then other countries entering into and then having either import or distribution agreements with those. So I think Western Europe is a major area of focus for us,
Right.
and things are in the works to move more product from Canada there while there's no domestic production in country.
Okay, so in terms of the biggest global markets, what ones will Wayland be in? So let's look out 24 months. Where will Wayland be distributing to in terms of the world's biggest markets in 2 years?
Yeah, I even like to look at 2024. How is this business going to be? You have to make the moves now to be present in the market then. As we were discussing earlier, we made the move in January of 2017 to become full EU GMP compliant in all of our production. You have to make the moves ahead of time. You have to plan. And if you're just following the trends and piling on to the latest and greatest craze of things like funded capacity, registered patients, you're really behind the ball, and then you're a follower, not a leader. And where we're leading, Western Europe has health insurance coverage for patients in medical. We saw the UK come online. The National Health Service will be implementing legislation. We'll see a large market for cannabis in Europe. In 2024, this looks like a rational medical market globally, with a few outliers of recreational cannabis among that. So I think where we're positioned is to be a leader in Western Europe, to have distribution there. Health insurance covers patients, and I think Italy is a growing market. We have established ourselves with an organic growth opportunity there with a great established agricultural partner, and we'll be entering markets like that. Italy is probably one of the most exciting cannabis markets because they're focused on the ability to gain revenue and tax revenue from this. Regulators usually only have downside risk, and what we're looking at in Italy is regulators looking at it from how can this be beneficial to the economy, to people, and help the broader spectrum of society.
Wow. So population of Italy?
North of 60 million.
North of 60 million, so Canada plus half.
Yeah, Canada plus half. There's a lot of exciting markets in South America.
Yeah.
There's opportunity to create biosimilar products there as well.
Sure.
Through trials. It's. I think we have to look beyond Canada.
Yeah.
Knowledge and tech transfer is what we have as a company because of 5 years of experience here. But really taking that to the rest of the world, where there are mass population bases and markets that everyone's using cannabis. But how do we see that come above the table? And it's an exciting opportunity.
Yeah. So this is one of the discrepancies I see a lot in the mainstream is people always are clamoring about California, and California is the biggest market in the world, and it's like, no, it's not. It's like Italy, for example, is 60 million people. Germany, how many people live there?
Germany is 85 million people, and plus another 5 million people who have residence there. You have 90 million person market.
Right.
And remember, it's not pay out of pocket, it's health insurance payment. So
free weed.
California is a place that things are commercialized.
Yeah.
It's a great place as much as Milan is for fashion. California is for entertainment. So there's a lot of talk about it, but there's a lot of bandwagon hopping. And so if one person gets valuation for going to California, everyone piles on. So we see a lot of people basically chasing trends instead of making trends. And at Wayland, we're trendsetters.
Sure. A feature of trying to pile on to a very sort of mature market in terms of regulation like California is that at what point does price competition start to undermine the profitability of the massive group trying to, compete?
That's a reality for us globally, and I think that a lot of people projecting large profit margins, especially with U.S. Tax Code 280E, until there's some type of federal legislation. You have to remember, all U.S. companies are being taxed on gross revenue, and they're paying tax on that base. There's a lot of financial maneuvering. So everyone can pile into 100 million of revenue, 200 million of revenue. We're focused on profit. If it's not profitable for us and we don't have those buckets of margin, why participate in that market? So California is interesting when legal, and then see who the major players are and whether it's worth competing there. But right now there's enough fertile soil all over the world that we can participate in. So we're not US centric.
Right. So the other aspect of for Canadian investors and other investors globally is if you invest in a U.S. enterprise that's deemed a domestic enterprise by the SEC or the IRS, then you're looking at withholding tax, which is can be a real nightmare to recover.
Yeah, there's a lot of legalities, and we'll see how things flesh out. But for us, Western Europe's a great market, South America, and then moving into Asia. This isn't just a Canada or US specific trend. We see a lot of US specific news here in Canada, but this is the front of the page of most newspapers globally.
Yeah. What about China? Is China a market that people can consider as a future cannabis marketplace?
I don't think so at this time. I think that legalization is a while away there. They're a large hemp producer, and they've used cannabis in traditional remedies over time, but we just haven't seen any progression there. But Japan's an exciting market, especially for CBD products,
Right.
and I think we'll be looking at something there in the near future.
Well, fantastic. The Canadian sort of supply chain seems to be a bit broken in that, you know, I've been to a lot of the growers, but the Ontario Cannabis Store is out of weed all the time and out of most products frequently. So is the Canadian market more problematic at this point than, you know, it seems, or than we expected when legalization took place in October?
I think that the Canadian market is very mature from a consumer standpoint. What I think that the issue is the legalization timetable and time frame was accelerated with no real thought as to what does it actually take to implement this. And the main headline here is demand exceeds supply. And no one could have guessed that there'd be that much demand. I sat in my easy chair at 12:01 a.m. and ordered my product from the Ontario Cannabis Store, and I've received 2 grams of it, and the rest are now apparently delivered to my house today. So that's a time lag, but I think that we got all of our numbers on what the real market is in Canada from criminals and people looking at the criminal activity. Well, criminals aren't declaring their public demand for product. So what we've seen is an explosion of demand. We see what the real size of the market is now. And we also have supply chain issues that are when you receive excise stamps and POs 2 weeks before legalization and deliver now in these product formats. And by the way, we want all 1 gram sampling jars. Well, it's a challenge for us. So I think we'll see that normalize out over Q4. It already is starting to on our end. A little few hiccups that we had at the start have been smoothed out. And then in Q1, we'll really see the growth of those of us who are well positioned with supply, being able to supply the provinces. You have to remember this, the provinces didn't pick their initial large supply orders like the stock market does, picking people on daily volatility. They went as external validators and chose those of us who they believe can supply them with large amounts of cannabis over the course of time. So I think the external validation is there of those of us who won the big agreements. And I think that you'll see groups like Wayland shipping a large amount of product Q4, Q1, and then into next year.
Wow. Okay, so then from what you're saying to me, the idea of funded capacity doesn't seem so important. It doesn't matter that you can have funded capacity that has no distribution channel. What are you doing? You're basically growing compost.
Yeah, so a lot of people cashed up and said that they were going to build these massive facilities. We are building a massive facility, and we're halfway there. Rooms are online, growing, sales license in that facility. I think just looking at funded capacity is a complete misnomer. Are the numbers actually there? Have these groups even achieved a sales license? And what are they doing? So a lot of them are competitors or would-be competitors in the market vying for attention. I don't think that we'll see much of that capacity ever built because those of us who have this head start will get there. So I've mentioned this before. It's unfortunate for the industry. There'll be a lot of spectacular failures, but there'll be great successes at the same time, much as the .com boom.
Right.
How many people owned Ask Jeeves? How many people owned Pets.com?
Yeah.
Everyone wasn't a Google.
Right, that's right. Interesting. Okay, well, Ben, let's leave it there for now. We'll come back to you in another couple of weeks and keep the conversation going. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks a lot.